What's up everybody, Commander Sanctum here, and today we have a brand new deck tech using Choco, Seeker of Paradise. Choco is a 3/5 bird for 1 green-white blue that has, whenever one or more birds you control attack, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may put one into your hand, all lands onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest into your graveyard. Choco also has landfall, giving him +1/+0 whenever a land enters under your control. Birds are an interesting creature type in Magic. There are a ton of them, and even some lords, supporting other birds or providing some sort of effect when birds enter or are cast. Previously, most legendary birds that actually cared about the creature type were all blue-white or just white, making Choco the first Bant-colored one to do so. With this deck tech, we'll be focusing on this bird theme, including all the lords and payoff cards for playing the creature type. With that, let's get into the card highlights. To start out with our birds, let's look at some Chocobos. Chocobos are a new type of bird from the Final Fantasy set that don't have flying, but instead generally care about lands in some sort of manner. Traveling Chocobo lets you play lands or birds from the top of your library. It even doubles landfall and entering birds triggers to boot. Speaking of birds entering, Bart's and Boko enters and lets all your birds bite opponents' creatures, acting as great mass removal if you have an army of birds at your disposal. Ambrosia Whiteheart is a good protection spell, since you can flash it in response to a targeted removal spell against Choco or another bird that you have out. We also have a few sources that create Chocobo tokens with the typical landfall ability. Chocobo Racetrack is one such source, having landfall itself to create a Chocobo. Since we'll already have a bit of a landfall sub-theme thanks to the Chocobo ability, this has the potential to create a ton of Chocobos over the course of the game. Summon Fat Chocobo only creates a single token, but gives all creatures trample with its 2nd through 4th ability, making for a great way to get in some damage once we have a large bird army. Side Quest Raise a Chocobo also only creates a single token, but really shines once you have 4 birds out, since it'll transform into Black Chocobo, netting you any land card from your deck while also pumping all birds with its landfall ability, not just itself. For the non-Chocobo birds, we'll start with a slew of legendaries that provide some sort of utility for playing other birds. Gwaihir the Windlord gives all other birds vigilance, making them even more effective in combat, since they'll be able to attack and still block when needed. Castral the Windcrested has an amazing effect whenever at least a bird hits a player, letting you draw a card, pump all your birds, or reanimate one from the graveyard. The way it's worded means that you'll be able to do this for each player you hit with a bird, meaning if you hit all 3 of your opponents with at least 1 bird, you'll get 3 triggers from Castral, giving you insane advantage. Kangi Airy Keeper was generally the de facto bird commander before Bloomburrow and Final Fantasy came out, and is still extremely powerful, since it can easily turn a small bird army into one that can knock out an opponent in one shot. One common theme among the bird lords is that they care specifically about creatures with flying. While this doesn't include Chocobos, it does include the other types of birds, making these strong includes in the deck. Warden of Evos Isle and Watcher of the Spheres both reduce the casting cost of creatures with flying by 1, making it much easier to cast more birds in a single turn. The Watcher even gets temporarily bigger the more birds that enter in a turn, making for a great evasive attacker if you can produce a ton of tokens all at once. Empyrean Eagle acts as an anthem effect for flying creatures, making for another effective way to get in some good damage against opponents with your bird army. Speaking of pumping your birds in combat, there are a few that do so specifically when they attack. Kangi Skywarden and his lieutenant are 2 such examples, with Kangi doing the same thing also when blocking instead of attacking, making for a great creature to use in combat. Steel Plume Marshal has the best rate with this effect, giving a full +2/+2 to each other attacking creature with flying. There are also a number of birds that provide some sort of utility for other birds. Celestial Gatekeeper reanimates 2 birds when it dies, providing an extremely efficient reanimation rate on the levels of the card Victimize. Keeper of the Nine Gales makes for a great removal spell for your opponent's most pesky cards, even if it is at a more suboptimal rate. Jackdaw Savior acts as another reanimation effect that can be very effective since it triggers whenever a creature with flying dies, not just itself. Alongside actual bird cards, there are also numerous ways to make bird tokens. Since we're going for the creature type theme, the more we can have on the battlefield, the better off we'll be. For this, there's Amiria Angel, which fits with our sub-theme of landfall, since it'll create a bird token whenever a land enters. It even synergizes well with our flying theme, meaning it'll also benefit from the birds that focus on flying rather than the bird type. Hermes, Overseer of Elpis, creates bird tokens whenever we cast a non-creature spell, and even lets us scry 2 whenever we attack with them. These bird tokens are even better than normal, since they have vigilance as well, making for a great source of more effective tokens. Murmuration not only buffs our birds, giving them +1/+1 in vigilance, but also creates Stormcrow tokens for each spell we've cast on our turn. If we can set up a turn where we can cast a ton of birds or simply ramp or draw spells, Murmuration can create us a flying army pretty much all by itself. Skycat Sovereign can generate us bird tokens, albeit at a rather inefficient rate, but really shines as an attacker or blocker, since it'll be massive most of the time thanks to its first effect. Battle Screech is a great way to get us a good number of birds in a pinch, while also having a flashback cost even better than its normal mana cost, since it'll be very easy to get to in a deck like this. Flurry of Wings is a card that can generate us a ton of birds in a lot of different scenarios. If you're being alpha striked by a large army, casting this and using them to chump block can save you in that game. Alternatively, if an opponent is attacking another opponent with a large army, casting this can net you a ton of birds to then attack with on your turn. The most powerful aspect of this card is that it doesn't state that the attacking creatures have to be towards you, just that they're attacking someone, making for a great way to sneak in a win. There are a number of birds or bird-based spells that act as great protection as well, whether it's for one of your permanents or entire board in general. Aven Interrupter can temporarily counter a spell, making for an effective way to stop a board wipe if you have a large army out that you don't want to die. Plumecrete Escort is similar, but gives a single creature hexproof instead, providing a great way to stop targeted removal against Choco or any other great bird you have out at the time. Perch Protection is not only a bird token generator, but can also act as a great on-theme Teferi's protection as well. The promised gift of an extra turn is pretty steep, but since you can't be interacted with on that turn due to the effect, seems well worth it. Since we're so focused on a specific creature type and theme, there are a number of great card draw effects we can use in the deck. Airborne Aid is one such effect, which will draw you a card for each bird in play. This is one of those cards that would normally never be used, but since we have such a heavy bird theme going on, actually turns into an extremely efficient card draw source for us. Winged Portent is similar. Since the vast majority of our creatures will have flying naturally, we don't need to worry about the cleave ability to get the most out of it, making for another extremely efficient card draw spell. Winged Words may only draw 2 cards no matter what, but the fact that it'll almost always cost 1 less to cast for us makes it efficient enough to work in the deck. For a trio of card draw effects that work well in any sort of typal deck, we have Distant Melody, Vanquisher's Banner, and Kindred Discovery, all effects that'll draw us cards in some way related to our birds. Kindred Discovery is pretty much the best one, since it draws a card not only when a bird enters, but also whenever a bird attacks, making for a huge source of card advantage in pretty much every scenario. Vanquisher's Banner is also nice, since it acts as an anthem effect for our birds, making our attacks, or even blocks, all around better as well. Since we'll be attacking a lot with this deck, having some good combat utility cards is a great way to make sure we can finish the game quickly and ruthlessly. Beastmaster Ascension is pretty much the best go-wide attack card out there, since it'll be very easy to get enough counters onto it to give all our creatures a whopping +5/+5 permanently. Rally of Wings is a great combat trick on either offense or defense, since it gives flying creatures +2/+2 and untaps them. This can allow you to either get some extra damage in on an attack, or get your opponent if they end up attacking you, thinking your creatures are all tapped and unable to block. Finally, there are some general utility cards that work well with our overall themes. Plumecrete Mentor is a great way to either make your entire army slowly larger, or quickly pump up a single creature to get some massive damage in on an opponent. Soulcatcher's Aerie is a great aggressive card to use, since it'll make your birds larger the more that they die. This is a great card to play with tokens, since you can more aggressively chump block with your tokens, which will in turn make your better birds stronger. Speaking of tokens, Tawnos the Toymaker is a great way to get the most out of our non-legendary birds, since you'll be able to get a second copy of them. It actually even works really well with legendary creatures and the Soulcatcher's Aerie, since you could then make a token copy of the legendary bird, it'll die due to the legend rule, which will then give the Aerie a feather counter. Birds of Paradise and Patchwork Banner are great mana ramp effects for the deck, since the Birds of Paradise is, well, a bird, and the banner acts as an additional anthem effect for all of your birds. Raise the Palisade is pretty much the best typal bounce spell, since it'll be a great way to get rid of pretty much all of your opponent's creatures every time, while keeping most of yours intact. Here's an example deck list utilizing all the previously mentioned cards. Additional cards include effective green land ramp spells in Kodama's Reach and Skyshroud Claim, additional protection sources in Dovin's Veto and Heroic Intervention, and some cool bird-based lands in Animal Sanctuary and Seaside Haven. Needless to say, Choco has an extremely powerful ability, especially when it comes to the land portion of its attack trigger. Putting all lands from among the cards revealed into play, that is just an extremely absurd ability, and a very easy way to overwhelm your opponents with land advantage, especially in a deck built completely around birds. Choco's landfall ability is also nice, but honestly, I see him more as a value engine than a payoff, so he should only be attacking when it makes the most sense. You'll have enough birds attacking in a deck like this, especially thanks to all the token generation, that he really doesn't even need to win the game. The one downside I will note with this deck is just the different types of birds there are. The Chocobo birds, i.e. the ones from the Final Fantasy set, don't have flying, instead opting more for a landfall theme. While this works well with Choco himself, it doesn't really synergize with most birds from other Magic sets, since they focus more on flying. So there is kind of a weird amalgamation of birds that care about landfall and birds that care about flying, which is important to keep track of when playing the deck, especially when it comes to various triggers. Due to this, I opted for playing less Chocobos than other Magic birds, since there's just more support for the flying type, but you could probably do the reverse if desired. I think Choco's ability to ramp out a ton of lands quickly is still good enough to not focus solely on the landfall aspect of the cards, but again, that's more preference than anything. If you're a big fan of ramping out lands quickly, or just birds in general, give Choco a try. Even if you opt for a different strategy than me, I think you'll have a ton of fun playing him. I hope you enjoyed watching this deck tech on Choco Seeker of Paradise. The full deck list outlined in this video can be found at the Architect link at the top of the description. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like and comment, as well as subscribe to the channel for more Magic content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.